This is Heal Your Mind, Heal Your Body with Dr. Schuyler. Discover how your thoughts manifest disease and what you can do about it. Here's your host, Dr. Schuyler.
Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back. Today we are talking about secondary gains and what are they? So the body is designed to heal, but not if the naturally restorative processes are obstructed by neurobiological programming from an early age. Things such as automatic negative thoughts, chronic invalidation, attachment style, childhood trauma. Now just bear with me on a second for this concept that plays a role in anxiety in the disease process. In previous episodes, I talked about phases of healing, talked about my own personal journey, and time spent in a wheelchair, and my darkest subconscious thoughts came from victim-martyr phases. So on a deep level, this role I played, I gained a sense of nurturing and love. And this patient pointed out to me, wow, you were so vulnerable, Dr. Schuyler, to tell the world that your martyr victim story. And she's an adult of 2 adult daughters. And she asked me, so you were playing the victim, so you were basically crying wolf? Yep, I agree. I was crying wolf on a deep subconscious level, and this wasn't consciously thought out or planned. I felt loved when I was nurtured. I felt cared for when I was sick, and it felt good thinking I was important. I was loved. I was gaining something from being sick. So this is called secondary gains of illness and anxiety. Secondary gains mean we are getting some sort of benefit from the disease. And I completely get it if this sounds outrageous to you, and I'm the first to agree with you. Yeah, it is outrageous. But it also is a real thing. Both truths can exist at the exact same time. It can be outrageous and be truthful. So if we just go back an episode when I talked about attachment style, and I'm rather open about this, I grew up in a mild, gentle version of an avoidant family. And I don't even think it was necessarily my family, but more of the generation, the 70s, 80s. We didn't hug back then. There wasn't cuddling. We didn't say I love you. There was no tucking you into bed. It's just a way of life. So it felt really important, and I felt very loved whether I got a caress on the head or a gentle touch. It was like this jolt of love. It was this massive hit of like dopamine and oxytocin, and I wanted more of it. So when I was sick early on, I realized, wow, when I get this special attention, when I get my head caressed in this beautiful, nurturing way by my mom, it was this magnificent jolt of love. It was this magnificent jolt of, oh my gosh, I feel so good. And so secondary gains is like the dark truth that we all tap dance around in the medical and therapeutic world. Like we don't want to invalidate the person. We don't want to accuse them of faking it. But let's call a spade here. Secondary gains in chronic illnesses are referred to the unintended benefits or advantages people may experience as a result of their illnesses. So every autoimmune and GI patient I work with, once they are far enough along into this journey of healing and they take this step into this courageous self and they begin to admit that they have some sort of gain or benefit. And in the last episode with Dr. Safter, we talked about the miracle patient. And once I did a deep dive into the miracle patient's early years, she fully admitted to the dark truth that no one wants to talk about. She was fulfilling a void left in her from childhood, these childhood beliefs that she'd been carrying around, that she was not important, that she was not important enough for someone not to leave her, that she was not loved and she was not chosen. So I'm going to talk about the dark side of the disease because A, I can, B, I've done it, and C, once my patients have the courage to be honest with themselves, they begin to explore their secondary gains and they begin to feel better. It's like a magic pill. I had this patient, as soon as she realized her gains, within a week, her IBS symptoms drastically improved. She was able to actually leave the house. She began working. I have countless stories of this. So if we take the clock and rewind it, why do we subconsciously create a need for secondary gains? Like many out there, I did this. So we began to people please. We began to display self-abandonment behaviors. We're not living our authentic truth. We're not speaking our truth. We're not using our voice to speak up for emotional needs. We're allowing for our boundaries to be violated. We're settling for emotional breadcrumbs. Or we're just starving, waiting for the breadcrumbs to feel loved, acceptance, and validation. It's almost as if we're trying to prove we are worth it. We're trying to people please to feel like we are good enough. So even if we are told or we sense that we are not worth anyone's time, truth, or energy, or we are told or we feel we're an emotional burden to them or we're their biggest regret in life, we feel unloved, not worthy of love, and we do people pleasing even more to gain this sense that, yes, we are good enough, or yes, we even are enough. So there has to be a breaking point, this relief valve to all this emotional pain, almost like this get out of jail free card, this get out of the cycle of trying to gain your attention, trying to gain your love and approval, like a help me valve. We have stuffed this anger, this sadness, this resentment, this feeling unwanted and abandoned and ignored, these silent treatments, feeling emotionally dismissed, like you're just too busy for everything else. Ones that we love are too busy working. They're too busy with house projects. They're too busy scrolling Facebook, as if we're begging for time and attention, a safe place to express our needs. Secondary gains are a help me button when we don't have the understanding of how or why we're being dismissed or ignored by people that we love that are too busy. People that are not an emotional safe place for us to land. Just exhale. A place to feel vulnerable with our needs and just be held. It's as if these feelings we are having is like emotional drowning, like we are drowning in this emotional pain, and secondary gains feel like a subconscious life raft. It's a help me. So the same patient asked me, why are you so comfortable being so vulnerable, telling people that in essence you were faking it? And again, it was on this really deep subconscious level. It wasn't a conscious faking it. It was just having these really deep-seated unmet needs being met. And, my response was, I've gotten more people who have shifted from the victim to survivor phase just by hearing that story alone. And I am completely comfortable if I can charge the way with all my dark sides, my insecurities, and completely love and embrace all different phases of healing, including the victim phase and including the dark side of secondary gains. It's in hopes that if one person is inspired, if one person begins to turn inwards and to think, hey, wait, on a deep level, am I fostering this? Am I creating or nurturing any of this? Do I have unmet needs that are being met when I'm sick? I don't want to be sick, but I do like how others treat me when I am sick. And if one person begins to look inwards and sees that, wow, okay, maybe I am gaining something from this. And facing this vulnerability, this self-honesty, and I always like to say, you can lie to the whole world. You can lie to your loved ones. Just don't lie to yourself. That's self-abandonment. So when you step into that authenticity of self, that authenticity of, I secretly do like missing work. I secretly do like missing school. I secretly do like not having to turn assignments or project in. I secretly do like being able to miss certain things that are placed upon me as expectations from others. It's this stepping into this, I don't have to step into the arena of being perfect. I don't have to people please. I don't have to put on this facade that I'm perfect all the time. I don't have to do so much around the house. Being sick is a relief valve from life's expectations and pressures. So it's like It may garnish the sense of sympathy in this much needed attention. And we have the saying in mental health when parents say to stuff, oh, my kid's just doing that for attention. Okay, then give it to them. If your kid is wanting to harm themselves or is getting themselves sick and you think they're attention seeking, then give them some attention. If they have to go to such drastic means of self-harm or really unpleasant thoughts about not being on planet Earth anymore, I think your child may need some attention. That is a secondary gain. Give them the attention. And this is how I like to describe it. If two people are sitting at a table and there's this large pitcher of ice water right in front of them, one person just came from walking 8 hours in the desert. No water, no food, no shade. The other person just came from this nice meal with dinner and wine and water. Who's going to be thirstier? The one who just had food, wine, and water, or the one that just came from the desert who was depleted of water? If we are depleted of our basic emotional needs, we are thirstier than the person sitting next to us. It doesn't make it right or wrong. It just means we need more water, and that's okay. It's okay if you need more attention. It's okay if you need more love. It's okay if you need more nurturing. We are human. We are designed to have emotional connections with other people. And when we don't receive those emotional connections, our body begins to create a safety valve, a way out. It begins to create illness or disease or fears or anxieties that can garnish some form of attention and love that we so deeply crave. And that's okay. People don't expect much of us when we are sick. The fear of failure, the fear of not good enough, the fear of rejection, because we are too sick to try. Poof, the pressure's lifted. We are set free from our own expectations from others, and we may even get a little extra love and attention, and it feeds our thirst for more connection. It's almost as if the cycle begins to repeat itself and nourish itself. So, as we just begin to really dive into this healing process and, what is a dark side of healing? And if you're truly honest with yourselves, if you're authentic, and if you truly dig deep into your ants, your subconscious thoughts, ask yourself without any judgment, does any part of me feel like I'm getting off the hook from life's pressures? Do I feel like my needs from loved ones are being met? Do I feel like I'm getting the attention that I deserve or that I require? Do people expect less of me or treat me better when I am sick? And I ask that question again. Do people treat you better when you are sick? When you step into this honest place with yourself, no judgment, you begin to shift. We begin to feel different. We begin to feel relief. And if you're in the right, safe environment, you can begin to ask for your needs to be met. Hey, I need a hug. Hey, I like it when you're off Facebook and you connect with me and pay attention to me. I like it when I feel important to you. I like it when you listen to my needs. It feels really nice. If you don't have the safe landing, you can do what I did. And you just begin to foster and create this internal sense of safety within. And that is a whole separate podcast upcoming. It's really cool how to start creating this internal sense of safety and to stop abandoning self. But if you have the human connections, you have the support staff around you, you've got family members that want to hear, begin to ask for your needs to be met. And I gave this out to my kids when they were early on, because I knew how many times I faked a headache or I faked a stomach ache. I faked something in elementary school to get out of school so I could be home with my mom and just be around her and have her attention. The worst part about that is it actually developed into a real disease later because I faked it for so long. My body just started to listen. So I told my kids when we first started school, you never need to fake being sick to get out of school. Just tell me you want the day off and I'll give it to you. If your grades can support missing school, you got the day off. Just don't ever fake it. And funny enough, my daughter last night asked, hey, can I have Friday off? Yep, take it. I don't care. It's creating this space where our family members and our children can feel safe and okay asking, hey, I just want to stay at home and spend the day with you. They don't have to create this sickness to garner us attention. So when we begin to face this honest truth about ourselves, we begin to feel different. It's like you feel this relief and you get to this authentic truth and you begin to create this safety. And I know evidence-based, and even the study that I did back in 2020, that when we increase our safety, we increase our vagal tone. And when we increase our vagal tone, our IBS symptoms improve as well as abdominal pain. And I'm going to really dive into vagal tone later and how fascinating it is. But when you begin to hold yourself accountable for your own truth, you've now internally shifted and stepped into the survivor phase. It's as if you've gotten out of martyr and you've gotten out of victim. It's like you've taken your victim suit off and you're putting this survivor phase, like I can do this phase. It's a place of accountability in your own healing. It's this autonomous knowingness that you're okay to have this hard internal dialogue with yourself. Our symptoms improve when we can hold ourselves accountable with no judgment for our automatic negative thoughts and our secondary gains. And I tell my pediatric patients, hey, man, it's okay. You might not even know your secondary gain yet, but just bring awareness with no judgment to your ants. And ask yourself, how are you being treated when you're sick? What changes occur in your life when you're sick? And 100% of the time after a patient has explored their secondary gains, their GI symptoms or inflammatory responses begin to get better and their anxiety gets better. In some cases, it goes away altogether. And what I have found is that kids may not always tell their parents that they feel better because they're not done with their secondary gains. And the same with adults. And that's perfectly okay because they're feeling better internally, their symptoms are better. And then we begin to work on tools, how to feel validated, how to ask for love and affection without being sick. So the same thing applies to adult patients. So to answer my patient's question that was so stunned that I admitted to the world, and to this very moment, I know it's helped more than one person. So kind of just being forthright and vulnerable, talking about such a sensitive topic of secondary gains in hopes that some eyes may be opened. And I completely accept that people are going to be offended and maybe upset by this. And my intent is to get the conversation rolling, that secondary gains are real. Let's start talking about it. Let's be vulnerable. And if understanding the secondary gains begins to shift in awareness, we can begin to get a shift of feeling better. Because the day that I was done being a victim, the day I realized my secondary gains were not going to be met, not even in death, I was done craving attention and nurturing. That was the day I began to heal. So I want to take my lessons, my journey, and teach as many people as I can about the dark side of healing that no one's talking about. It's being sick can deliver rewards. Secondary gains create neural pathways that install a reward system in the brain. Sickness can lead to feeling freedoms from life's pressures. So even though you're crying, you're in pain, your child might be crying, they're in pain, there is a secondary gain being set up in the backstage of the subconscious mind with chronic illnesses that are not medically, organically based. So before you go tell your kid or your partner, your loved one, hey, it's in your head, that's in your head. Well, I promise you, that'll make it 1,000 times worse because it's not in their head. These are real symptoms. These are real disease processes happening. This will activate and overstimulate their fight response or limbic response. This will exacerbate their condition. I promise you. If someone would have said to me when I was fully in my secondary gain phase, my martyr victim phase, you're doing this on purpose, I would have doubled down and gotten sicker. And it all would have been on a deep subconscious process. The worst thing you can do is call someone out because they're not faking it. They're simply a human that has some needs that need to be met. And for some reason, somehow, being sick helps fill those needs. Now, this is not the primary process. This is, again, is just one of the 7 or 8 ingredients that makes up the mind-body connection that contributes to mind-body disease. Sometimes when there's no way out, we will create scenarios to give us a way out. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. If you find yourself getting agitated, upset, and annoyed or angry with this concept, that's totally okay. That's acceptable. This is a way to begin to validate your own unique experience. That it's okay to get upset with this concept, and it's okay to also sit in your truth that you may be doing this. And maybe it's time to stop gaslighting yourself if you are doing this. If something in you feels as if you're having secondary gains when you face your own truth, you can stand in your own truth. I believe authenticity is the bridge to inner divinity, and that's peace and safety. And so what if you have secondary gains? So what? Just be authentic about it. If you're in the secondary gain phase, you may be creating problems for every solution, and that's okay. So what? It doesn't matter. And this is how I like to view it. Secondary gains are the dark side of disease that no one wants to talk about. Stars are always there, right? But we can only see the stars when it's dark outside. So we need the dark in order to see the light. We need the darkness in order to see the stars. We need the secondary gains in order to see the healing. Secondary gains are okay. They serve a purpose until one day they don't. I really hope this information helps, and I do have a book coming out. It's called Empower Your Child to Heal, and it talks about secondary gains, attachment style, automatic negative beliefs. It really dives deep into this mind-body connection, all the different processes that are involved with it. I also have a second book coming out for those without children. It's just Empower Yourself to Heal. And it really gets into all these different ingredients that make up the mind-body connection and how we can start creating wellness with anxiety and GI and autoimmune issues. I do have a retreat and a workshop coming up in the fall, and I've got some fantastic mind-body experts and coaches that have been trained personally by me, and they're going to help with the process of getting you all in touch with the somatic experience of healing and what that looks like. If you go to drskyler.net, you will get monthly newsletters that are sneak peeks into the book, and there's even a couple of new free downloads that you can get from there, and as well as sending an email if you want to inquire about the upcoming retreats or workshops. I hope this podcast has helped you guys gain some insight and some understanding, and I send you all so many healing vibes and abundant blessings. Thank you. Thank you for your time. I feel so grateful you have listened to the end. When we begin to understand how our body manifests stress, trauma, depression, anxiety, and even unexpressed emotions, we then create a space, a bandwidth in our minds to begin to heal our bodies. Healing is a decision, and I am grateful for yours. Abundant blessings, Dr. Skyler.
To learn more about the work Dr. Skyler is doing, please visit drskyler.net. That's drskyler.net. And remember to subscribe to this podcast wherever you like to listen.
Produced by Audavita Studios. Connect your voice to the world.